In the village of Umuoji, they said her eyes were cursed. They said the goats died because she looked at them. They said the rains refused to fall because she breathed the same air as everyone else. So on the 7th market day, the elders tied her hands, dragged her past the shrine, and buried her alive at the edge of the evil forest, the place where no one returns. But 7 years later, smoke began rising from that forest again. And someone was walking back toward the village. This is the story of ADAEZE, the girl they buried, and the truth they never wanted to face. The morning sun rose slowly above the ancient hills surrounding Umuoji, painting the sky with soft shades of orange and gold. Roosters crowed from every compound, announcing the beginning of another day. Women swept their yards with long palm brooms while men prepared their hoes and cutlasses before heading to their farms. Smoke curled gently from clay kitchens as the smell of roasted yam and boiling porridge drifted through the village. To a stranger, Umuoji looked peaceful. It was a village blessed with fertile land, flowing streams, and thick forests that stretched farther than the eye could see. Palm trees swayed gently whenever the wind passed, and birds filled the air with cheerful songs every morning. But beneath that peaceful beauty lay something invisible. Something powerful. Something called fear. The people of Umuoji believed every good thing came from the ancestors and every bad thing came from unseen spirits. Whenever rain delayed, they searched for curses. Whenever crops failed, they blamed angry gods. If a child became sick without explanation, someone had to carry the blame. That was the way it had always been. And no one questioned it. No one, except one girl. At the eastern edge of the village stood a small mud house with a leaking thatched roof. Unlike the large compounds owned by wealthy families, this home was simple. A tiny vegetable garden surrounded the compound, filled with pumpkin leaves, scent leaves, and medicinal herbs whose names only a few elders remembered. It was here that 16-year-old ADAEZE lived with her father. She was already awake before sunrise. With a woven basket hanging from her shoulder, she stepped quietly into the cool morning air. She paused beside a large mango tree. Several tiny birds hopped excitedly across the branches. ADAEZE smiled. "Good morning," she whispered softly. The birds chirped loudly in response. She laughed. I know. You're hungry already." She reached into her basket and scattered a handful of grains across the ground. Immediately, dozens of birds flew down, pecking happily at the food. An elderly woman passing by stopped walking. She watched from a distance. "There she goes again," she muttered. "Talking to birds." Another woman carrying firewood joined her. "I've told you before," she whispered. "No ordinary child understands animals like that." The first woman shook her head. "That girl has always been strange." Neither woman noticed ADAEZE looking toward them. She heard every word. But she simply smiled sadly and continued feeding the birds. She had grown used to the whispers. After leaving the birds, ADAEZE walked toward the forest carrying a small knife and her basket. Morning dew covered the grass. Butterflies danced from flower to flower. The forest welcomed her the way an old friend welcomes someone returning home. She never feared it. While others only saw trees, ADAEZE noticed everything. She knew where healing leaves grew. She knew which roots eased fever. She knew which flowers soothed pain. No one had taught her. She simply knew. She bent beside a short green plant and carefully plucked several leaves. A gentle breeze passed. The leaves rustled. ADAEZE smiled. "I know," she whispered. "You'll help someone today." By midday she returned home. Her father, Obiora, sat outside repairing an old fishing net. The lines on his face spoke of years of hard work. When he saw his daughter approaching, a warm smile spread across his face. "There comes my little healer." ADAEZE laughed. I'm not a healer, Papa. You know more about plants than half the elders. They've simply watched longer than I have. Obiora chuckled. And yet they still come secretly to ask you for medicine. She knelt beside him. They don't want anyone seeing them. They're afraid people will talk. They always talk. Her father sighed. People fear what they don't understand. ADAEZE looked toward the forest. Do you think they'll ever stop fearing me? Obiora placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. My daughter, you were born different. But different doesn't mean evil. She rested her head against him. I wish everyone believed that. So do I. Years earlier. The day ADAEZE was born should have been the happiest day of Obiora's life. Instead, it became the darkest. His wife had gone into labor before sunrise. The village midwives worked for hours. Outside the hut, Obiora prayed without stopping. Then, the baby's cry finally echoed through the compound. A beautiful baby girl. But moments later, the crying inside stopped. Completely. One of the elderly women stepped outside slowly. Her eyes were filled with tears. I'm sorry. We saved the child. But we couldn't save your wife. Obiora collapsed onto the ground. From that day forward, people began whispering. A child who takes her mother's life before seeing the world cannot be ordinary. The rumor spread from compound to compound. Children repeated it. Adults believed it. And although nobody said it openly before Obiora, everyone remembered. Back in the present, ADAEZE carried a clay pot toward the village stream. The narrow path was crowded with women fetching water. As she approached, conversations suddenly became quieter. Some women smiled politely. Others stepped aside without saying anything. A little girl carrying a small calabash smiled brightly. Good afternoon, Sister ADAEZE. ADAEZE smiled back. Good afternoon. The girl's mother immediately pulled her daughter closer. I told you not to disturb people. But I was only greeting. I said come. The woman hurried away. ADAEZE watched silently. Her smile slowly faded. Near the stream sat an old widow named Momankem. She struggled to lift her heavy water pot. Her hands trembled from age. Without saying a word, ADAEZE walked over. Let me help. Momankem smiled gratefully. May God bless you, my child. Together they lifted the pot onto the old woman's head. You've always been kind, Momankem said. Don't listen to what people say. ADAEZE looked surprised. You don't believe them? The old woman laughed. I've lived more than 70 rainy seasons. I've learned that kindness and wickedness cannot hide. You have a kind heart. That's all I need to know. Tears almost filled ADAEZE's eyes. Thank you. As they spoke, a young boy slipped on the wet rocks beside the stream. He screamed as his knee struck a sharp stone. Blood flowed immediately. Women panicked. Someone help him. ADAEZE hurried over. She tore a piece from her wrapper and tied it tightly around the wound. Then she reached into her basket. She crushed fresh green leaves between her palms. The juice covered the cut. Within moments, the bleeding slowed. The crying stopped. The boy blinked. It doesn't hurt anymore. The women stared. One whispered nervously. How did she do that? Another answered. I told you. Normal girls don't know these things. The grateful mother hugged her son tightly. But never thanked ADAEZE. Instead, she picked him up and walked away quickly. Almost as if she feared staying near ADAEZE too long. ADAEZE watched them leave. Momankem sighed deeply. The world can be cruel. ADAEZE forced another smile. I've learned to live with it. Far away, standing on a hill overlooking the village, A magnificent compound rose above every other home. Its high mud walls were decorated with white chalk symbols. Large wooden gates guarded the entrance. Inside lived the wealthiest family in Umuoji. The family of Chief Okonkwo. Chief Okonkwo was respected by many, and feared by even more. His word carried the weight of law. When he spoke during village meetings, no one interrupted. His wife, Lolo Ifeoma, believed deeply in dreams, omens, and the warnings of the spirits. If a bird landed on the wrong roof, she noticed. If an owl cried at midnight, she called the elders. Every unusual event had meaning. Every shadow carried a message. Their only son, Obinna, was 10 years old. Unlike many children of wealthy families, Obinna had a gentle heart. He often escaped the large compound to play with children from poorer homes. Many times, he secretly greeted ADAEZE whenever he saw her. He never understood why everyone feared her. She had always smiled at him. She had never harmed anyone. That evening, the village gathered in the open square. Drummers played. Children danced. Traders displayed colorful fabrics, clay pots, spices, and carved wooden masks. ADAEZE wandered quietly through the market carrying vegetables her father hoped to sell. Many customers ignored her. Others bought quickly without making eye contact. One woman whispered, "Don't touch her hand. I heard strange things happen." Another replied, "Keep your voice down. She might hear." ADAEZE pretended not to notice. But every word settled quietly inside her heart. As the sun disappeared beyond the hills, dark clouds slowly gathered overhead. A cold wind swept across Umuoji. The cheerful market became strangely quiet. Dogs began barking. Birds suddenly flew from the trees all at once. Even the drummers stopped playing. An uncomfortable silence settled over the village. Far away, somewhere in the darkness, a child screamed. It was not the playful cry of a child at play. It was the cry of pain. People turned toward Chief Okonkwo's compound. Then another scream echoed through the night. Women dropped their baskets. Men began running. The healer was called immediately. Nobody knew what had happened. But before dawn arrived, the first child in Umuoji had fallen mysteriously ill. The cry that echoed through Chief Okonkwo's compound that night refused to leave the minds of the people of Umuoji. Even after the moon disappeared behind thick clouds. Even after the market had emptied. Even after every family locked their wooden doors. The sound lingered. It was the kind of cry no parent ever wanted to hear. The cry of a child fighting for life. Inside Chief Okonkwo's compound, the air was heavy with fear. Oil lamps flickered against the mud walls, casting long shadows that danced like restless spirits. Women hurried from one room to another carrying bowls of cool water and bundles of medicinal leaves. The village healer knelt beside the little boy who had first fallen ill. His forehead burned with fever. Sweat soaked his tiny wrapper. His breathing came in short, painful gasps. His mother held his hand tightly. My son, open your eyes." The little boy did not answer. His eyelids remained shut. His lips trembled as if trying to say something that never came. The healer slowly placed 2 fingers on the child's neck. His face became serious. Very serious. Chief Okonkwo stepped closer. "What is happening?" The old healer remained silent. "I asked you a question." The elderly man sighed. "The fever is unlike anything I have seen." Lolo Ifeoma immediately covered her mouth. "What do you mean?" "I have treated snake bites. I have treated poisoned food. I have treated strange fevers brought by travelers. But..." He looked down at the child again. "This one is different." A cold silence filled the room. Outside, Dozens of villagers waited anxiously. Nobody wanted to leave. Every few moments someone asked the same question. Has he opened his eyes? The answer never changed. No. Before sunrise, the first rooster crowed. Morning light slowly spread across Umuoji. Normally the village would already be alive with laughter. Women would fetch water. Children would chase each other through the dusty paths. Farmers would leave for their fields. But not today. Instead, groups of villagers stood outside their compounds whispering. Everyone was talking about the mysterious sickness. Nobody spoke loudly. It felt as though speaking too loudly might invite the sickness into their own homes. ADAEZE woke before dawn as she always did. She stepped outside carrying her woven basket. The cool morning breeze brushed gently across her face. She walked toward the mango tree. The familiar birds were already waiting. She smiled. Good morning. The birds chirped happily. For a few peaceful moments, everything felt normal. Until she noticed something strange. Usually the birds rushed toward her. Today, half of them remained in the branches, watching, almost nervous. ADAEZE frowned. What is it? The birds suddenly flew away together. She stood alone beneath the tree. A strange feeling settled inside her heart. She could not explain it. Back in the village, news spread quickly. By midday, another child had fallen sick. This time it was little Chika, the daughter of a palm wine tapper. She had been healthy only hours earlier. Now she burned with fever. Her body shook uncontrollably. Her frightened parents carried her to the healer's hut. The healer prepared herbs. He crushed bitter leaves. He boiled medicinal roots. He whispered ancient healing prayers passed down from his grandfather. Everyone waited. Nothing changed. The fever only grew worse. By evening, a third child became ill. Then a fourth. By the next morning, there were 7. Every family in Umuoji suddenly feared the same thing. The sickness did not choose rich or poor. It entered any compound it pleased. Children who had been laughing in the morning were lying helpless before sunset. Mothers stopped allowing their children to play outside. The village paths grew quiet. Even the stream, usually filled with laughter, became almost empty. Fear had begun to spread faster than the sickness itself. Inside the healer's hut, bundles of herbs covered every corner. Clay pots boiled over open fires. Smoke filled the room. The old healer had not slept. His eyes were red. His hands trembled from exhaustion. He looked toward the ceiling. Ancestors, show me what I cannot see. His young apprentice quietly entered. Master, the family from the western compound has arrived. They say their son cannot stand. The old man closed his eyes. Another child. He slowly stood. His knees almost gave way beneath him. Meanwhile, ADAEZE was walking home after collecting fresh medicinal herbs from the forest. As she entered the village, she noticed something unusual. People stopped talking when they saw her. Women pulled their children closer. Men avoided looking into her eyes. A young boy who usually greeted her quickly hid behind his mother. ADAEZE lowered her eyes. She understood. Fear changes people. She reached her father's compound. Obiora was sitting outside sharpening his farming knife. He looked up immediately. You've heard. ADAEZE nodded quietly. More children? Yes. She placed her basket on the ground. I've never seen the birds behave that way before. Obiora looked concerned. What do you mean? They were frightened. They flew away before eating. Her father remained silent. He had lived long enough to respect nature. Animals often noticed danger before people did. That evening, smoke rose from nearly every compound. Not from cooking fires. From herbs. Families burned medicinal plants throughout the village hoping to chase away evil spirits. The smell filled the air. Children remained indoors. Dogs barked without stopping. An owl cried somewhere deep inside the forest. Several elderly women immediately looked toward the sky. One whispered, "This is no ordinary sickness." Another nodded, "The spirits are angry." A third woman spoke even more quietly. "Or, they have finally revealed the witch among us." The others exchanged frightened looks. No name was spoken. Not yet. But every one of them was thinking about the same girl. ADAEZE. The next morning, Umuoji no longer sounded like the village ADAEZE had known all her life. The laughter of children had disappeared. The pounding of yam in wooden mortars grew quieter. Even the women who usually sang as they swept their compounds walked in silence. Fear had settled over the village like a dark cloud. People no longer greeted one another with cheerful smiles. Instead, every conversation began with the same question. Has anyone else fallen sick? Sadly, the answer was always yes. Before the sun reached the middle of the sky, another child collapsed while helping his father in the farm. His name was Chinedu. He had been laughing only moments earlier. Then suddenly, his legs became weak. The basket of cassava slipped from his hands. His body trembled violently before he fell face first onto the ground. His father rushed toward him. "Chinedu, my son." The little boy opened his eyes. But they looked strangely empty. His skin burned with fever. Within minutes, the entire farm had emptied. Neighbors carried the unconscious boy back to the village. Once again, everyone ran toward the healer's hut. The healer had almost no herbs left. Clay pots covered every corner of his small hut. Bundles of dried leaves hung from the ceiling. The smell of bitter medicine filled the room. His hands shook as he prepared another mixture. He crushed fresh roots between two stones. He added sacred leaves. He whispered ancient healing prayers. Then he gently poured the medicine into the child's mouth. Everyone waited. The boy swallowed. For one hopeful moment. Nothing happened. Then, his body began shaking even harder. His mother screamed. The healer immediately placed his hand on the child's forehead. His face turned pale. "I don't understand. I truly don't understand." The room fell silent. For the first time in many years. The old healer looked defeated. Outside, villagers watched one another nervously. An elderly man slowly shook his head. "I have lived for 70 harvest seasons. I have never seen anything like this." Another replied quietly. "The spirits must be angry." A younger woman lowered her voice. "Or perhaps, someone among us is causing this." The group became silent. Nobody answered. But every face carried the same thought. ADAEZE knew something had changed. As she walked through the village carrying fresh medicinal herbs, people stepped aside. Some refused to let her pass close to them. Others stared openly. A few children pointed at her before their mothers quickly pulled them away. One frightened little girl asked, "Mother, is she really a witch?" The woman's face became serious. "Don't ask such questions. But stay away from her." ADAEZE heard every word. She kept walking. Her basket suddenly felt much heavier than before. When she reached the stream, even the women collecting water became quiet. The cheerful conversation stopped. One by one, they lifted their clay pots and left. Soon, ADAEZE stood completely alone beside the flowing river. She looked down at her reflection. What have I done? Only the sound of moving water answered. That evening, Obiora returned from his farm carrying almost nothing. The crops had begun drying despite recent rain. He placed his hoe against the wall. ADAEZE immediately noticed the worry on his face. "Papa, you didn't harvest much today." He sighed deeply. "The yam leaves are turning yellow. So are the cassava." ADAEZE frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "It doesn't." Obiora sat quietly for several moments. Finally he spoke. "The village is changing." ADAEZE nodded. "I can feel it." Then she hesitated. "Papa, do you think they are beginning to fear me?" Obiora looked directly into his daughter's eyes. "They fear what they cannot explain. That doesn't make them right." "But..." He paused. "Fear has a dangerous way of becoming truth in people's minds." ADAEZE lowered her head. She understood exactly what he meant. High above the village, Chief Okonkwo stood outside his magnificent compound. From the hill, he could see almost every roof in Umuoji. Smoke rose from dozens of compounds. Not cooking fires, healing fires. The chief gripped his carved staff tightly. His trusted advisor approached carefully. "My chief, the sickness has now spread to 11 children." Chief Okonkwo remained silent. "And the healer? He says he has never seen anything like it." The chief looked toward the dark forest. "This cannot continue." Inside the compound, Lolo Ifioma burned sacred incense before the family shrine. She whispered desperate prayers. "Ancestors, protect this village. Protect our home." Suddenly, a loud cough echoed behind her. She turned quickly. Standing in the doorway was Obina, her only son. He smiled weakly. "Mother, I don't feel well." Immediately, her heart skipped. She rushed toward him. "What's wrong?" "My head hurts. And I'm cold." She touched his forehead. Her hand froze. His skin was burning. "No. No. Not you." Obine tried to stand. His legs suddenly gave way. He collapsed into his mother's arms. Servants rushed toward them. "Quick! Call the healer. Tell my husband." The compound erupted into panic. Moments later, Chief Okonkwo entered the room at a run. When he saw his only son lying motionless on the mat, his face lost all color. The strongest man in Umuoji suddenly looked helpless. The healer arrived almost immediately. He knelt beside Obina, placed his hand on the boy's forehead, then slowly closed his eyes. The fever. It was exactly the same. The same burning skin. The same trembling. The same strange breathing. The same empty stare. The healer opened his medicine bag without saying a word. Deep inside, he already feared the worst. Outside the compound, villagers gathered again. But this time, the whispers were different. If the chief's own son is sick, then no one is safe. Fear spread faster than the evening wind. Doors were locked earlier than ever. Parents refused to let children leave their homes. Even the village dogs stopped barking. A strange silence settled over Umuoji. Far above, dark clouds covered the moon. And somewhere, deep inside the evil forest, an owl cried 3 times.